accrual basis. When there are, something you earned, then we should record the revenue. When there are something, in order to make money, you spend out, you disperse money, then we have to recognize the expense. Then that's what we call accrual basis. Okay? Usually cash, you receive cash, you pay back. You don't care what's the real fact, but you just record the money. Then that's what we call cash basis. But accounting is not. Accounting is accrual basis. We see the facts. As long as you provide all the service, as long as you sold out, you transfer the right to your customer, then even though you haven't received the cash, then they are still revenue, or they are still have to be the expenses. Oh, okay. So this is accrual basis. You have to get used to it because all the international countries, everyone is using accrual basis. The only exception is when you are filing tax, then most of the time they are based on the cash. Okay, so this is accrual is a keyword. That's the reason we need to do the adjusting. We need to do the adjusting. Okay. Next, okay, I mentioned probably 80% or even close to 90%. The company is not necessarily using the calendar year, so be careful we have to work. Calendar year is our daily, from January 1st to the end of the last day. But we also have, that's another thing, like school, we call academic year. In Taiwan, the academic year starts from July 1st to the end of June 30. Okay, that's another title, academic year. But for the business, some company, I feel used to it, adopting the calendar year. That just happened to be calendar year. But most the corporation, most of based on their, fluctuation of the season, hot season to low season. Most of the example is department store. Like recently in the United States or almost other country, it's a very hot shopping season. Okay, then toward the New Year, then after New Year, people are still, waiting online for what? Returning the goods. Okay, so the end of the hot season for this department store normally will be end of January. So their physical year starts from February 1st to the end of 30. Okay, so it's not really necessary, but important thing is no matter you are using the calendar year, no matter it's a academic year or we call the physical year, they have to be 12 months, okay, and 52 weeks consecutively. Okay, that's we call the physical year. So make sure you the difference. Okay, and I just mentioned that we are using accrual basis, which means whenever you earn the money, you have to record the revenue. Whenever you spend the money, you have to record the expenses. Okay. All right. So that's we talking about. So we give the example. So how about adjusting account? Okay, adjusting entry. As long as you are making entry, they are always debit and always credit and have to be number totally equal. Okay, we call that entry. But we are making adjusting entry at the end of the period. Okay, and the three major. How do you know how to make the adjustment? Very easy, because every day we are making the daily transaction entry. So for example, you have accounts, you receive cash, then you have some revenue, for example. Then every time whenever you finish entry, then you need to go to the posting again. So again, posting means you put all the record to the individual account. That the action is called posting, 过账, 过过去, okay? So which means actually on your accounting book, it looks like you have cash, you have notes receivable, you have accounts receivable, maybe you have inventory later. We'll move into this chapter, something like that. So starting from the first category, you have so many items for accounts. Later on, it's moving to liability. You have so many different accounts. So this is accounting book. Accounting book. For each individual account, it has its detailed information. Okay. So, but for the class, for the demonstration purpose, we use T account. Okay. Actually, T account is the one of item from your accounting book. OK， 事实上你的那个日记簿里面的那个账簿哈，你的会计科目啊，它列了所有你公司 based on your accounting policy. Every company has its own accounting policy. 它有自己的公司会计政策。It can maybe more than 30, 40 accounts. Maybe if it's only a small company, maybe there are only 20 accounts should be enough. So based on your company size or the complicated the feature of your company, the item can be many items or very limited item. But it doesn't matter as long as you have the list of the account. Then every time when you are doing the entry, you need to do the posting. Then what is the posting for individual account? They are coming from your ledgers, 你的总分类账 ledger. Okay, so starting from now, whenever I'm saying you need to go post into the account, T account, actually on the formal ledger, it doesn't look like this. The T account is only for calculation, easier illustrating purpose. 之所以会有出现 T 字账 ，T 字账事实上就是每一个会计科目的详细的一个列表 ，OK。但因为在课堂上或者是在跟人家沟通的时候，我们不可能把每个账户的个别的账户一大堆拉出来，所以比较容易表达的方式就是用 T 字账。所以你不要以为 T 字账它就是一个T 账不是正式的一个表达的方式，它只是一个大家沟通的方式。Okay, so back to our adjusting. So every time, or then you have accounts receivable again, or something, for again revenue. So which means, I should not use cash as I should use prepaid. It's easier. Prepaid. Prepaid rent, for example. You pay out some at the day you pay out $10,000 with cash in order to have the right to stay in one dormitory or the hotel, whatever, for 1 month or for 3 weeks, or whatever. So at the time, you have the posting to the individual prepaid. So currently, before, I use 12, easier. So each month is 4,000. So before you're making your adjusting entry, your balance is always being kept of original number, $12,000. But actually, after 1 month, you have already enjoyed your right for 1 month. So which means step 2, okay, step 1, determine what the current account. Actually, that means before you do any adjusting, that's the current one, okay? But after the time passed, then what's the one, number 2, the number should be 应该有的会计科目。那你只剩下如果是12000，4个月3个月花1个月4000，你住完1个月花，你只剩下2个月的权利。So actually, after 1 month, there are only 8,000 balance left. This is the right you left. So how can you make the original 12,000 and to the end balance? So that's why you need to do the adjusting. You adjusting for a month. You have enjoyed 1 month, which means the right only has 2 months left. That's what we call adjusting. So step 1 is the current one. Actually, another description you should say before you do any adjusting. That's the step 1 number, okay? And step 2, at the end of period, how much is supposed to be? That's the one should equal, okay? Then step 3, then we have how can make the original one, the current one, to the end of the balance. Then we call you need to do the adjusting. Do the adjusting. That's the basic concept of adjusting. So don't just look the words. So that's why lots of students get confused. Because prepaid expenses, then you will say, oh, that's expenses. But actually they are not. Because you pay something later on, they will, once you used, once you enjoyed, once the time passed, you have already lose your right, then they become expense. But before the time, they are your assets, okay? So just like here, prepaid rent, credit cash. These goes to, this is the item should go to here. Prepay something because they are assets, okay? They are assets. And the unearned revenue, even you see the word revenue, but before you provide your obligation, they are still, as long as you mention obligation, they are liability. So that's why when people give the order, can you help me to do some work for my garden, okay? So you receive the cash for like $10,000, but this is unearned revenue, even though they call revenue, but not yet, because you have to wait. So this unearned revenue will go to here, liability, unearned. Before you do anything, the balance is still keep up with the $10,000. So this is liability. So when you, for example, next month, when you provide a service, then they become real revenue. So don't just see the words and make a guess. Oh, this should be expense, and I know the word revenue, so this should be the revenue. Actually, they are not. Okay, prepaid. Prepaid is liability. Unearned is prepaid is assets, and unearned is liability. Okay, since these two major categories, they involved with either time or the obligation. So you have to either complete, then they transfer to expense and revenue. But these two, another item we call the accrued. 中文只要看到 accrued 这个字，它就是应计。accrued 这个字是应计。It can be receivable 应收 ，it can be payable 应付。No matter receivable, no matter payable, we call the general term accrued. 所以你看到的 accrued 应计，有可能是应收，有可能是应付。OK， 两种都叫做应计。OK， 既然是应 suppose you should do, okay, which means payable, receivable, which means it happens. Okay, for example, I have a customers, and they all have good credit. 他们都信用很好. So I want, in order to make my, the sales even bigger and bigger, normally I will provide my customer with certain credit days. Okay, 信用日期. For example, Kevin, he has a very good credit, so I offer him 7 days. Okay, Palomo, maybe I just knew him. I'm not quite sure, but I want his business. Probably I will only provide him 3 credit days, which means Kevin can pay me the full money within 7 days, but Polumo only has to pay me with 3 days. Maybe Lisa, I heard you have not good credit with the other customer, but I still want your business. Probably I only give you 1 day. Okay, as long as we are getting along pretty well, I may extend the credit. But later on, I found Kevin has a news from the media. Okay, then I will cut his 7 days to just 1 day. So that's why most of the company, they also build up the financial department. They are using evaluate the credit of the huge customers. We have an overseas internship. I sent my student. It's been a couple of years to the 5th big pharmaceutical company. Actually, in Taiwan is #1, Yongxin Yaochang. Okay, I sent them my student to their branch headquarters in Malaysia. Okay, and I visited the company, and also because my student also working for intern at the financial department. They have a huge board, something like this size, and you will see all the whole map, the world. So which means the sales for their drugs to different countries area. Then you will see the red light, green light, the 3 colors light, okay, and the flash, very quickly. I'm so curious what that's for. They say because they have set up the credit for their customer, so whenever they meet the deadline, they maybe turn to red. Whenever they overdue, then turn to red, something like that. So you can easily to see the credits, the status, the credit of all the customers. That's a real company, okay? 所以信用交易 but for our accountant, we only say, oh, we have a credit sale something. But in real, another area, the office, they are checking on the status for, because it really matters if all the customers, at least 10% of company, didn't pay your money, okay, then that's a huge loss, okay? 所以信用交易是非常重要的。But here, for easily, we call that accrued. So for example, I sold make a deal, have the sales to Kevin for $200,000. Then today, so for this transaction, for me, we call that accounts receivable. Okay, but today, since I already transferred all the product, delivered all the product to him, so it's done. So I can recognize today's revenue for $200,000. Okay, then so if this is the day for what's the year? Okay, 11/30. Okay, then actually it's not money is not coming yet. So this is something accrued. Okay, similar things. You receive the utility bill, and actually the company already operating for 1 month, and then later on you receive the all the utility bill. 你收到公司收到水电费。When you receive the utility bill, but actually all the expenses has incurred already. 所有的费用，水电费用都已经发生了。So for you, before you pay anything, here we see pay after expense. Later on you will pay out the bill. So we say utility payable, 应付水电费 utility payable, okay? But it's actually the expense already happened. So you will record the utility because this expense has been already incurred. For example, it's $5,600. So you have to recognize when you receive the bill. 你收到水电费的时候，你已经知道这个 incurred already. So record number. But before you pay the money, they are payable, which means accrued payable, 5600. Okay? So this is also something you need to record. So we have several things for this, okay? So later last week we have some example. I'm not going to do the old example again. I saved to do some practice later for the from the exercise question. I just want to remind that there are several things from last week, and also supplies are also the similar concept. Supplies means you purchase lump sum items. I used to have a project working with a urgent psychology hospital. People with some psyche problem, then they have to stay in the hotel, hospital for a pretty long period. So my mission is helping them to evaluate their financial status, and because they are thinking probably they want to sell the hospital to some other big hospital from Taichung or I forgot Taichung or Taipei. Anyway, so I have to do the analysis for their detailed, expense. So I still remember they purchased a lump sum. In those kind of psychology problem, the patient they are very violent. Okay, they have to sometimes break this and break that. So everything, and they hurt themselves. So they have to do something for these kind of patients. So, but for the budget system, 每一家的任何企业都要做预算。Then the office telling the all nurses, you have to give us the budget for all the cotton or the medicine, whatever for the room. So if you cannot spend all the budget money, then next year we're going to cut your budget number. 所以他们在那个精神病医院疗养院的时候，他们都会要求任何地方都会做，先前学校也是一样，会做1年的预算。Okay, so because before I'm doing the calculation, the analysis, they didn't tell me the story. Okay, what happened? So I analyze and the truly value. Okay, saying okay for September, how much you have spent for those kind of supplies, whatever, and for November, how much you have spent for the detail for the supplies. Okay, 我每个月都按照他们的去分析他们，因为那个是一个6-month project. So I record all the detail for each month. But moving to the end of last month of December, 到最后一个月的时候 I was surprised. Why? What happened to your hospital? Because, for example, for November, all the expenses related to medical expenses, like $10,000, and for October, probably $12,000. It's not fluctuated that much. But moving to December, well, that month cost over $100,000. So that drew my attention. What happened to December? Some violence in the case happened, so people had have a lot of surgery or something. 因为9月份可能是1万块，10月份也可能是12000，11月份可能也是1万上下。到了12月，忽然间那个月的所有的医疗的开销费用变成了10万多。那我以为说，因为那是个精神病院，是不是12月发生什么暴动，让大家做了什么手术或者是伤害要去调解？就他 No, Professor, because we're using the budget system, so actually we over the budget for the whole year's expense. Added before the year. The reason why, because we worry they might cut our budget, so we over giving the number. But actually we didn't spend that much. 他们通常都会给那个预算高一点，因为很多的部门都会砍他们的预算多少嘛，所以他们都通常高估。但每个月呢，他们就乖乖的按照怎么样花怎么样。To the end of month, they still are required to spend all. If they cannot spend all the money for the next year, people, the department, the center will not give you that much. They don't trust your budget, plan. So 到12月的时候，他们担心，如果他不把钱花掉的话，那下一年他们又会被找麻烦，因为他们可能是就是会要减他们的预算。 所以到12月的时候，他们就the balance still have over $100,000. Then they have to spend all the money on. I don't know how. Okay, that's the budget system. But anyway, still, when purchase something, the supplier always will encourage you to buy as much as you can. Because the more you buy, they will give you a more percentage of discount. 通常你买东西的时候，他们说你越买越多，你的折扣越高。所以 normally people are willing to buy, huge amount. Then this is when they purchase, we say that supplies. Later on, based on how much you have used or how much you have spent, then we go to have to check the should be number. Okay, suppose originally you purchased 12,000 the supply. After you did a physical count 就实体去盘点的时候 then the balance is $8,000, which means 4,000 items of the supplies has been taken away to use up. Okay, 所以这个就是 become expense 啊。So supplies also the similar idea for prepaid expense. Supplies, so which means supplies also goes to the assets. Then their value will decline, gradually. Okay, so that's supply, and so similar thing. And I think we were here last time. The depreciation. Depreciation is a new way. Actually, they are similar to prepaid the item. Okay, what is depreciation? As long as they are fixed asset. What is fixed asset? Building, computer, the equipment, office equipment, the transportation, the car equipment. As long as they have limited life, okay, then they will become older and older. We call that fixed asset. Fixed asset. Okay, then all the fixed assets, the value will be dropped. But you may argue, 谁说的？房子有些在地段越好，它就算30年老房 ，even the house, the apartment or the building, they are located in a very hot area. Okay, and even though the house or apartment or the building looks so old, but since they have located in a very good spot, the value should not be dropped. 你会相信吗？对不对？很多的那个很旧的大楼，在它没有拉皮前，那它都很旧，可能30年、50年。但是如果它在黄金地段的话，它的价值是不会跌反升嘛，对不对？但是 it's not related to the economic condition. 我们的 accounting actually itself will not consider the economic factor. 我们在做会计的时候不会去想那个经济因素。But we still have to make something to reflect the market value. Then we'll say to the later chapters. Okay, accounting itself, it does reflect the market status. 它确实有反映市场的 value. But for the book, accounting book, we don't make a change. Okay, so that's why for all kinds of fixed assets, 所有的固定资产 they have to become older and older, and the value should be less and less. 所以所有的固定资产的价值，不要在讨论经济的因素的前提下，它都会越来越旧，然后它也越来越没有价值。If that's the case, how are you going to tell the people actually the value become less and less? 那你在会计上怎么让人家知道，这个东西它的价值已经越来越低了，对不对？ Then we use the depreciation. Okay, 你已经看到这个中文叫做折旧，折旧。所以 you should know the words. 比如说 for example, you're consider to buy a car for your family or for yourself. Then should I buy Japanese car, or should I buy US car, or should I buy the car imported from the Europe, like BMW or Mercedes? Okay, 你在买车的时候，你会考虑说，我到底要买哪一种？日本车、美国车，还是欧洲进口车 ，or our local 这什么？我们的
玉龙
我们台湾车叫什么？
玉龙
哪一个？玉龙的那个牌子叫什么？Luxion. Okay. Anyway. Okay. So you have different, all consideration what kind of car you want to buy. Okay. Then people will ask you, well, you should consider the depreciation. Normally we'll say that Japanese car, the depreciation rate is slower. Then normally we will say the U.S. car's depreciation is higher. What does that mean? 如果你买日本车的话，是折旧率高，折旧率低。如果你买美国车的话，是折旧率高。Then which is better? Japanese or U.S. car? Japanese, because the depreciation rate is lower. That's true. That's true. I still remember when I came back to Taiwan, I purchased Toyota car, a small compact car. Okay, the original value when I purchased is about $9,000 around. And after I used 3 years, then have to sell the car since I decided to move back to Taiwan. I was so surprised. I've been using 3 years, but actually, how much I sold the car? I still remember. It's something around 7,800 yen only, which means for 3 years, they only depreciate for, not even $2,000. Of course, I maintain very well, still keep it very new, okay? But I'm so surprised, okay? And later on, my relative in the U.S., they purchased a car, Dodge U.S. car, and only for 5 years or 4 years, the value almost cut in half, even lower than half of the price. Depreciation is so high. Okay, so depreciation is the normal concept of our daily life. Whatever you buy, they always have a depreciation idea. Okay, but for accounting, how do we calculate the number? How can you drop the number from the original purchase price? So this is depreciation. Okay, so depreciation is the process of allocating. Allocating means have to spread over. Okay, allocating the cost of plant asset over its useful life. 在它可使用年限 useful life 可以使用年限 in a systematic, which means has to be equally or drop the same ratio. We say systematic. 有系统的方法就是它要不就是每一期的数字分摊的一样，要不就是它是很有系统的一点点往下掉。Okay, and a rational manner. Rational manner means reasonable. The way to depreciate. Okay, but there are, based on the GAAP, generally accepted accounting principle. I think it's in the worldwide. We normally have several ways, method to depreciate. 折旧有很多的方法 but 80% of company they are using the straight line, very easy. Later on, the later chapter will discuss 3 or 4 different ways to allocate, to depreciate. Okay, but now we just give the concept of the adjusting. So we're using the common method of straight line, 直线法 straight line depreciation expense 叫直线折旧法 but it's very common. I just said about 80% of company they are using the straight line. Then what's the formula? Okay, the original purchase price, okay, then minus the residual value, the left value, the end value, okay, 叫剩余价值、残余价值 okay, then divided by useful life. Then, will you ask any problem with this formula? Because for the asset cost, there's no doubt of that. Because when you purchase, they definitely will provide you an invoice listing how much the cost is. 你在买的时候一定会有发票，然后 which will record the original price based on your invoice. Then you do the entry. There's no problem. You put the entry. For example, the building the origin price is $1 million, then here is the cost. But how do you decide the residual value? Maybe we have 5 people here, 5 people given different numbers. Will it be possible? I think it's very possible. 参与价值，我们5个同学的认定标准不一样。Okay, and also how do you define the useful life? Building, I said 30 years, but he said 40 years. Another one say maybe just 25 years. Okay, the car, some people say the car can only, the regular life is 10 years. But some people say, no, my grandpa's car is still there. It's been over almost 20 years. So who can, counting itself based on the gap, it has to record the original cost number. But based on the IFRS, we need to also do adjustment to the market value. Okay, but you still will not cross. You will not. Why I put at the at is the signal, the sign here, because you add up some, the IFRS number, then you later on it shows to the market value, but you still will not lose the original cost. Original cost. 所以再讲一下哈，会计哈，原则下一定要用原始成本来做记录，一定是原始成本做记录。但是呢，你会不会觉得说，跟国际会计准则又冲突？因为国际会计准则要求一定要用市场价值来表达，这样才不会让所有的使用者会误导他实质的那个资产的价值。所以呢，我们会有一个。比如说，这栋大楼目前只剩下250万价值，可市场价值事实上它可能是1000万。那你怎么样从250万变成1000万？你是不是要加750万的价值？那个加项就是另外后续处理，但是你不会把这个栋大楼当初所建造的原始成本把它划掉，还是要把它维持住 ，keep it。Okay, so that's something extra story. Okay, anyway, so for residual value and useful life is an estimated item. We estimate, 我们用估计的， based on professional, the concept, how much the residual value should be, and how many years or time. Okay, how much time for the useful life is. So these two. The residual value and useful life value, you have to estimate. Estimate 指的是估计，你用估计价值来做这个。But currently, you have to just remember the format. Asset original cost minus the residual value and divided by the useful life. Okay, then we call that, depreciation. So, but something you need to keep in mind, all the property, plant, and equipment, they all have to be depreciated. We call that PPE so here, for the assets, you will see a category of PPE, and listing for building, for some plant, 工厂, or for something. Or computer equipment. So 这些东西 those go to the category PPE. 所以大家把这个 property, plant, equipment 这个 PPE 记住，它是一个资产的大项，资产的大项叫 PPE. OK， 那这些 PPE 都应该要被 depreciated， 都要被折旧。But only another thing here, after PPE. You will see land. Why land does not go to PPE? Because the land is a property. Okay, land is property, but property is land will never, get depreciated. Land no depreciation because we have limited resource in the earth. Okay, there's no way land is so valuable. There's no way land can be depreciated. So land is the only item on the PPE has no depreciation. Okay. Alright, then let's have a break here. Example. Okay, then you know that. Okay. So here we have original cost. Hello, back to class. Okay. we have the original cost for 26,000 and the estimated, remember, only the residual value and the useful life are estimation number, okay? And the residual is 8,000 and the totally here, your book changed to 60 months and I haven't changed it here. Anyway, 60 months. So after that, which means 1 month, the value has to be depreciated for $300. Okay, that's the formula. But how are we going to make it as an adjusting entry? So here you see from the screen, this is the adjusting entry, very important. And actually, there are so many items, as long as they are PPE under PPE categories, they all need to get an adjusting entry for depreciation. Okay, so the depreciation for all the PPE has to be debit depreciation expense and the credit accumulated depreciation, but you need to have a hyphen here saying that it's equipment because we have so many. For example, we have transportation, we have computer equipment, we have different buildings, and we have different plants. If you don't emphasize the item here, they will go all combined together. So it's very important you have to indicate what it goes to, okay? And another question. Still remember, I mentioned last time, when you are doing the adjusting entry, definitely, no exception, one is income statement item account. Another one definitely is balance sheet account. Okay, so go back to some example, then we'll prove that. For example, here, see? For example, this is the, again, it's a adjusting entry. So supplies expense is a, so let's see. We have balance sheet. We have income statement. Okay, balance sheet, you can have asset, liability, or equity. You can go this way, or you can do another way. Asset put in the left, and liability equity put here. Both are right. And also for the income statement, you start from the revenue items, and you deduct all the expenses items. We call this income statement. So here, supplies expense will go to here. After they have the final the balance, then you have number here. And here you have the supplies goes to the assets. Okay. So for adjusting entry, definitely one goes to the income statement item and one goes to the balance sheet item. But here, how come you don't feel you see any asset value item? Because the adjusting entry for depreciation expense, there's no doubt about that. You will put the depreciation expense here. Okay, so far follow me, it's very important. This goes to here. But what about accumulated depreciation? It doesn't look like it's an asset or liability or equity. But what it is, okay, here again, this is equipment. So here under the assets, you have equipment. Here. So original value for $26,000. You have value $26,000. This is the historical cost. Since you need to let people know the value of equipment is declining and declining, how can you express from this way? So we have a minus item, we call that accumulated depreciation for $300,000. It's a minus, you can use the parentheses here, okay? So which means after the first time depreciating, your book value or carrying amount for this one is 25 see? Can you feel that? So the accumulated depreciation is also under the category of assets. So it still does not violate the principle. Any adjusting entry, definitely no exception. One goes to income statement, showing that expense or revenue how much. But another one will decrease for the whatever. Maybe the building, maybe computer or transportation or something like that. But the word is accumulated, which means it has to add up, and add up. Okay, so this is the first month. So what about the next month? Okay, you're doing the adjusting again. So for this, all the thing after we do the adjusting entry, they always have to post into the individual ledger. So for example, the depreciation expense after the adjusting entry will move to posting to here the first time. And here, accumulated depreciation will go to credit. Okay? Why credit? Because it's a contra account. Contra account. What does that mean, contra? Contra means against. Against. The accumulated depreciation is against, which means direct direction. Okay, so it's a minus. We call anything with a minus, we call that contra account. Contra account. So even though, because it's a minus, so that's why it's a credit here. So normal balance for accumulated depreciation, even though they are asset item, but since the purpose for that is going to decrease the value of the asset. So anything in that another direction, if it's originally debit, then you go to credit. If it's already credit, you want to decrease that, you put on to the debit. Okay? So that's why just please remember, even though accumulated depreciation, it is balance sheet asset item, but it's the normal balance is credit. The normal balance is credit. Okay? So here again, no exception. One is income statement item, another one is balance sheet item. Okay, here we have. So, for example, this is the first time that they do the adjusting, and for the next month, the end of January, you do it again, So after 3 months, your accumulated balance goes to 900 instead of the first time 300. So your value going to dropping and dropping, lower and lower. Okay, so that's the function for accumulated depreciation. So from here, then you can see it's been accumulated 3 times. So total balance is adding up to $900. Okay, then so for the balance sheet, it's a less contra account. So after that, the reason why my PPT is different from the number of euros, because this book is new version for this year. Okay, original, the book is that thick, very very detailed. Then this book is just for international version. And this year they changed, so that's why some numbers are different. Okay, all right. So the balance here, the final number, you can call that carrying amount, or another word, book value. Book value. Okay, so you have to know $25,100. What is that? It is we call carrying amount. So some book question will ask, what's the carrying amount for certain things? Then you should know that the final balance is a carrying amount, or we say that book value. Okay, so this is very special for the depreciation. So I have a question. Just think. You have to think. If you can answer this question well, then I think so far your concept is very good. Okay. Failure to record depreciation expense, which means originally you have expenses item and the depreciation expense. Each month is 300 here for income statement. Okay. The question is, failure to record depreciation expense will overstate the asset. Will overstate the asset and understate the expense. Is that true or false? Think about that way. So, which means, let's see the adjusting entry again. Which means if you forget to do the entry, what will happen to the asset? What will happen to the income statement? Okay, which means you forgot to record here. It is original 26 and the first time 300. If you didn't do this, what happened to the balance sheet, the asset? What happened to the income statement for the net income? Okay, definitely. If you didn't do this, originally it's supposed to be $25,700. Since you didn't do this, so the asset is overstated, right? And since you didn't do this, so this total revenue, you deduct nothing. So your net income is what? Overstated. Okay? So here is the question. If you didn't do this, we'll overstate the asset. Overstate, that's right. And we'll understate your expense. Originally, you didn't do this, so your expense is understated or overstated. Yes, so and the answer is true. Okay, so this just let you think about the relationship of all the statements. Okay. Now we're going to have the first one of quiz. So that's everyone, please go to the quiz one. Please go to, can you wake him up? He needs to do the quiz even though he's sleeping. I don't know how he's going to answer. Okay, it's open. You can check out with your book. It's open book question, but no discussion. 可以去查答案。不讨论啊，不讲话哦，自己做自己的，但可以去查书，查你的 PPT。 没送出来啊。为什么会有35分？不是才5题，6题吗？5题。对啊，才5题不是吗？怎么会有35分？
好像第一题是设计。
那这5分的分数？但是他把总的题数来算。Okay, 1 more minute, I'm going to close. 燕玲今天怎么没来？燕玲，知道？不知道？Okay, I'm going to close. Hurry up.诶，王振宇也没来，今天怎么回事？
王振宇对于我
没有，
他很强。
啊？他常不常来？他常缺课啊？真的吗？可是我的课我看他都很 OK 啊。
Next year 2022.
就没看到场。
OK， 我关哦。
上礼拜就没有。他还在吗？他英文课也。他英文课跟我没有，我从没见过他。
我们快来看一下啊。A fiscal year refers to an organization accounting period that spans 12 months consecutive, which means continue months or 52 weeks. Of course, the answer should be right. Oh, it didn't give you the answer here. The answer is right. And number 2, interim statement. Report a company's business activity for a 1-year period. The answer is false. What is interim? Interim means during the period. Can be monthly, can be quarterly, can be semi-annual. All these 3 statements we call that interim statement. But for the annual, that's with annual report. Okay, so the number 2 is false. Number 3, adjusting entry results in a better matching of revenue and expenses for the period. Yes, that's right. Okay, then showing the true net income. Number 4.
Question. Number 1 is false or true?
Number 1 is true. Okay, number 2 is false. Okay, number 3 is true. Number 4, adjusting entry are necessary so that the assets, liability, revenue, and expenses account balance are correctly recorded. Of course, it's true. Okay. Last one, recording revenue early overstate current period. Recording revenue early, of course, you put here early. Of course, your net income will be overstated. So far, it's right. And recording revenue later. Late, you should put it and you didn't put, understate the current period. I think it's true, okay? So let's move on. So we move to the unearned, okay? Unearned, which means you have received the money, but since you didn't do anything, so that your revenue has not come out yet, okay? So this is we call 预收收入. So don't just see the revenue, you think that's revenue. But you see the keyword here is unearned. unearned， 有些人是说叫做递延收益。所以如果你看到中文版叫递延收益或者是预收收益的 all the same thing. For example here, December 26th, this company agrees to provide consulting services to the client for a fixed fee, which means stable, the same amount, of $3,000 for 60 days, which means 1 day, 3,000 divided by 60, 1 day will, equal to 50, okay? On this day, the client paid the entire consulting fee in advance. So, before we move on, can someone help me to do the entry for December 26th? I need someone's help. 26. When you receive your client give you $3,000 for 60 days, which means starting from December 27, you have to provide a consulting service to them day by day. Okay? But for the first day, 26, how are you going to record this transaction? They pay you money, you receive the money, totally $3,000, and the entry. Okay. Lisa, you will come over here to write the entry for this day.
可以够吗？
够。Yes, and what? This is R. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so the first day you receive the cash and you have created unearned revenue. So this unearned revenue, since they are credit, so later on, if you want to posting and making a statement, then they are under the liability here, unearned. Okay, so this is the first day transaction. But here to the last day, we're making financial statement. So you need to do some adjusting in order to make the current, the right, the balance for all the accounts under the statements. OK， 到期末的时候你必须要做调整，这样子你所有报表上的数字才是最正确的。OK, now here, since 3,000 divided by 60, each day equals to $50. Okay, so starting from 27, 28. What happened here?
断线了吗？
Okay. 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. There are 5 days. Here, 31. So which means you have already fulfilled your obligation for 5 days. So 50 times 5, 250. Okay. Okay, that's right. Then how come it's 5 cents? Yes, this is original. This is day 26. Your entry. So number 2, you have to time the totally value is 250 for 5 days. Okay, so your adjusting should be like this. You reduce your obligation, so you put a credit to debit. 这边很重要哈。Since you have to reduce your obligation, okay, because you have already done the work you have to do, okay. But since you have provided service, they all become your revenue. They all become your revenue. Then revenue is an equity item, so that's why revenue is the balance should go to credit. 再强调一次哈，费用我们通常再 review 一次，我们的 equity 权益到底是什么？权益的第一个初始的时候是因为 有人投资，好，不管你是独资合伙或是公司，之后我们会有公司会计，你卖股票的钱就是你的 equity，OK，然后你就有资本额进来，好，这是你的 equity。第二呢，你除了这个要使这公司继续持续营运的目的是因为你要赚钱嘛，哈，那赚钱如果你有收入呢，就会让你的 equity 增加，啊，如果你是有费用的就会让你的 equity 减少，所以收入和费用都是属于影响 equity 权益的项目，收入和费用都是影响你权益的项目 ，OK， 但是因为收入 revenue 会 increase 你的 equity value， 所以他们跟 equity 一样都是在贷方。但是呢，费用会 decrease 你的 equity value，so the normal balance for expense should go to debit，OK？ 所以这也是为什么我们这里的 consulting revenue is going to credit，because they will increase your equity。所以不要老是记错，所以我们在讲的是你会慢慢发现，我当初跟你讲，你只要记住 5 elements 他们的 right position， 你怎么样增加，即便you go to the advanced accounting 高级会计的时候 ，we have so many different accounts that you will never get confused， 因为你只要抓住这五大类的精神，它就不会错，哈，就不会错。OK， so here, so this is adjusting entry. Adjusting entry, you reduce, so that's why you debit. Okay. All right, and now we finish prepay, we finish unearned. Then we are going to accrued. I just mentioned could be payable, could be receivable. 好，应收款项或是应付款项。但 here 这个是个很有意思的一个题目哈，这个 example. Cost incurs in the period and that are both unpaid and unrecorded. 既然既没有付钱，也没有被记录 ，OK. But the problem is the activity have incurred. 因为已经发生了，所以呢就要记录。所以我们这边是一个很好的意思。Everybody, please concentrate for this example. It really help a lot, and you know that your idea why you need to do adjusting is more clear. Okay, it's about the salaries. I think everybody here, or most of should not say every, most of students here or Taiwan, they prefer to have a part-time job. So no matter restaurant or in the drink 饮料店哈，但他们they all are paid by day or paid by week. OK， 很少的，因为你是 part time, they will not pay you by months. OK, so that's why when you are working for part time, normally your employer will pay you probably weekly or by week. OK， 2个礼拜 every 2 weeks. So that's why we cause a problem here. Okay, let's give the calendar. So this company, the payday is every 2 weeks on Friday. That's the payday. So based on this calendar for December, actually the first day starting from the Monday. Okay, so December 12th and December 26th has been already pay the full 10 days. They have the weekend off. Okay, so that's no problem. So then the problem is, well, the last day of the December is on Wednesday. It's not a payday. So if people working for this day, they receive the money. So the first week they will not receive money. So next payday should be on January 9th. But the problem is, we have to make a statement till the end of the last day. So this day has been paid, this day has been paid, no problem at all. But these 3 days, your employee has already worked for you for 3 days, but they haven't received the money. But the expense, the fact is already happened, already incurred. How are this? So these 3 days is the one you need to make adjustment. Okay, so let's move very easy from step by step for the whole story. Okay, the employee earns $70 per day. Okay, and they're paid every 2 weeks on Friday. Okay, so the last day, December 31, is on Wednesday. So last payday is on 26. Okay, now if you are an accountant, for the first 12 and 26 should be easy. So the first one, this, the second one, this, and the third one here. Okay, you need to know the whole month's recording. Okay. So it should be easy. 70 days, 2 weeks totally working for 10 days. Okay, 70 times 10, so it's $700. So for the first day of the payday, first payday of the month should be December 12th. Okay, so Monday, the first one, so totally 10 days. So we have salary, expense. Okay, expense is on debit. Okay, so $700. Since you have already paid them, so we use credit cash. 这题麻烦真的要弄清楚哈，它会 related to lots of questions across the period. Okay, so this is the first one, and the 26 same story. So actually the same. Okay, so after whenever you have done the entry, it has to posting to the ledger. So we have 700 here. We have again 700 here. This is for 12, and this is for 26. Okay, now here moving to the story adjusting. What are you going to do with that? $70 times 3 days, so total is $210. 目前可以知道吗？你的10天发薪水的日期应该没问题吧？Are you okay with the first two? 那个梗什么加什么，这边 OK 吗？那你们前面的这边到这边都 OK 吗？这是我们之前学的。Okay, this is the ones that we have learned before. Okay, is that all right? Okay. So now this is the job adjusting. And since we have already worked for 3 days, so which means we already incurred expense. As long as they incurred, then you have to record. Okay, so totally $210. Is okay here for 3 days. Why you want to record this day? Because here, that last day for this month is December 31. You need to do the report, which means they are financial statement. 你必须编报表，在最后一天编报表。所以报表里面的 income statement， 其中一个 salary expense， 如果你没有做 adjusting 的话，他们 current balance is $1,400. But since you have the 3 days, people has already worked for you, so you need to update the balance for salary expense. Otherwise, your salary expense will be understated, 就会低估了。Okay? So here, they are incurred. However, you owe them the money. So which for the company, we call that salary payable. So this is we call accrued accounting, accrued expense. So this is something new so far we learned. 我们现在新的一个会计科目叫应付薪资 salary payable. Payable is a liability. That's why it's on credit. 好，因为它是负债，所以它就是在贷方。好，我们资产贷方左右。OK， 所以 this is the one. So 因为你有这样子的情形呢，在你的 balance sheet 里面 ，OK， 你的 liability 其中有一个就是 salaries payable。OK， again, this is adjusting entry. One for income statement, one for balance sheet. So this is income after you update it. So here is 2. So the total expense here then should be updated to here. Okay? If you don't do that, your income statement expense will understatement, which means your net income will overstated because you forgot to deduct $210. Okay, then with whole max, everything's wrong. So adjusting entry is so important, so important. So 这个就是给你的整体的关联性。Okay, so far okay because we have something even more difficult to follow. So you have to understand the adjustment here, the adjustment here. Okay, 我们会把这故事讲完。好。所以呢，这边再看 once again, both 2 days for the payday you have to do twice. Okay, debit salary expense and credit cash. But for the last day, then you have to make up the adjusting. Okay, adjusting. Okay, now what about? So it's okay for December because you have completed all the days for the salary. But the problem is moving to next month, which is January. OK 吗？有什么？哪里不懂？要再讲。好，现在 more critical here. You move to January, and the payday is the second Friday. Okay, because the first Friday goes to here. Then it's not the first week, not paid yet. The second Friday, then is the payday for January. Okay, normally for December 12th and 26th, very easy. But problem, the first payday for January, there's something cross period. 2月份的第一次发薪日发生的问题是什么？你们可以告诉我 ，What's the problem? Why it makes it difficult? Because we have something here, payable. You owe money, but moving to this January 9th, you have to complete cross out. You have to pay the money you owe your employee. Okay, so now this is the problem. First thing, January 9th, first thing you have to pay off this debt you owe the people. So how do you write it off? How do you express your claim the debt? Then you put it of credit to credit, right? So we have salary payable because you are going to pay them. Totally 210 days. Okay? But for January, look in here. January, you have 1, 2, plus another 5, 7 days. People working for January. So this 7 days is the related salary expenses for January. Now you are making the entry for January. So you have incurred only for January salary expense, how much? 70 times 490. So you add it up, that's right, you have paid the 10 days $700. Okay, so which means this is the most critical problem here. So if I'm asking you how much so far till January 9th, how much is the salary expense for January? How much is the salary expense for January? I'm not saying December. I'm saying January till the date. Currently, how much money incurred for January for salary expense? Kevin?
$490.
$490. Only $490. Even though you pay out for the 10-day salary, but the first 3 days you have already, that's related to December. Okay, so these 3 days is related to December and they were recorded already. But starting from January 1st, okay, so there are only 7 days related to January. Okay, 所以这个非常关键。This is more important than adjusting. Okay, 在这一天里面， 其中的3天的薪资是属于12月，你已经记录了，但是你欠员工钱，所以你用应付薪资来表达。那你现在付10天里面钱，其中3天是属于12月，你已经记录，可是你还没付的钱，所以你把它 from debit to credit to debit，OK？那真正的7月的薪资只有7天，好，1月1号到1月9号7天，所以呢，你记录的费用是490元，但实际上你付出的钱是整个10 days，OK？So this is what we call future payment. Future payment. So it's very important because there are so many things will involve cross period， 会牵涉到跨期间。For example, interest payment or interest receivable, they all will be crossed because it's no way that December 31 or the last day of month will exactly, the activity will relate exactly on the last day. Okay, 所以我们就要说，除了 besides the adjusting, you should know what about the future payment? How are you going to handle the problem? OK， 这就是这个问题反正比较难的地方。OK， 好，那这个观念有了之后我们有很多什么那个利息计算啊，什么这一大堆事情都会影响到 cross period 跨期。OK， 跨期。OK， I think we should. So here's a short question. Net income for a period will be overstated. 会高估本期损益。What is net income when you have revenue, less the expenses, and the final number we call net income. Net income 中文叫做本期损益。So net income can be positive, net income can be negative. 如果是 positive 你就本期利益，如果是 net loss 的话就本期损失。But we can overall call them net income. Okay, will be overstated 好高估。如果 if accrued salary, what is accrued salary? 就是 salary payable, okay, which means 就是你的薪资没有付 are not recorded at the end of accounting period. 也就是说，如果你没有记录这个笔费用的话，那你的 income 就变高。Okay, so this one is true. The answer is true. Okay, similar idea for interest payment. So 刚才如果懂的话，那这题就应该没有问题。OK， 好，我们休息一下 ，Let's take a break. Okay, we are talking about the salary expense. Now we have some interest issue. Interest here 是指利息哈，不是说兴趣。I have interest in something. That's not the interest. The here is you borrow something, you owe somebody money, then normally they will charge you interest. Oh, hello, 后面。我们 if you borrow money, normally you will be charged with some expense. Then we call that interest expense. 利息费用哈。当你借钱的时候，一定就会所谓的利息费用。那 by the way, I have a short story about my relative son. Okay, no, for no reason, he is so crazy to buy the sports lotto. 我的亲戚小孩子啊，最不是已经 been couple years. He was so crazy to buy the sports lotto 运动彩券。And the problem is become serious. It's a mental problem, not just an interest or hobby. And no matter what kind of work he is doing, and he just spent all the money to buy lotto. Okay, later on, he steals the money from the company as long as he has the opportunity to touch money. Okay, so the problem becomes a serious issue because why? Not just the salary he spent, he also borrowed money from the 地下 some financial institute, 地下钱庄. You know the interest should be double and double and double. So finally, the institute, 地下钱庄 come to my relatives. Okay, huge money, almost $1 million Taiwan dollars. 然后 that's not the end. That's not the end. Later on, he just couldn't stop. Recently, he was sent to the hospital to have to cure the problem, mental. That's because of huge interest. He's been changing at least 5 works, 5 jobs every time he just couldn't stop, can resist the seduce， 经不起诱惑就 took the money and spent. He didn't spend money to buy good outfit or buy some valuable thing, just the lotto. He believes someday he can become a millionaire or fortune whatever. 所以这种已经是一种病态的这种行为。所以很早以前 ，actually right after he graduated, got his bachelor degree， 才大学毕业我就 warn 他的 parents he has problem. But at the time, the parents won't believe us. He said no way. It's just like buying the lotto. It's no way. But my husband and I told them it's not just normal behavior. Then actually the things prove that he couldn't stop buying it. Even then later on he couldn't find a job, so he became get a Uber deliver. Even if any chance he got a cash, then he just took away the cash to buy the lotto right away. So that's not normal. 已经是有问题。Okay, so interest is very easy. So someday your company might have many chances you need cash. Okay, you might, it's very high possible the possibility that you will borrow from the bank. Okay, but bank not necessarily will borrow you because they have to check your financial status. Actually, anyway, so company have accrued means payable interest expense on notes payable. Here's the note means you have a dual promise with each other, then you will pay and in a writing promise. 所以大部分的应付票据 can be a check, can be a commercial paper or whatever. OK， 所以所有的notes 指的都是票据，票据，而且它有实体的那个承诺，你将来一定要付。So many, I believe over 20 years ago in Taiwan, if you cannot default your notes, then you will put in jail. 你就会被那时候有票据法 notes law. Okay, if you cannot pay off your notes, then you will put in jail. But the problem if everyone was put in the jail, they will not have enough room for them. So that's why in Taiwan it canceled the notes law 票据法 Okay, so here notes payable we normally we using just like AR, we use AP, we use NP, notes payable, and maybe some other long-term liability. Long-term means more than 1 year. More than 1 year we will classify them to long-term liability at the end of period. So unless interest is paid on the last day, just like the salary we mentioned, it's easy. But the problem is most of the time the interest will be continuously for couple months, which means it definitely will involve the cross-period problem. So we need to adjust the interest expense incurred but not yet paid. Interest payable. Then the thing is, before we move to that part, you have to know how to calculate the interest expense. And the formula is very easy. The principal 就是你原本的本金，这边请注意这个字 principal 不是那个什么校长那个 principal OK principal owed 你欠的钱 times annual interest. Normally when they are talking to you interest, you have to be very careful. Is that based on annual, yearly, or based on months, or based on day? So 为什么说地下钱庄这么恐怖？因为地下钱庄 based on day， 所以它的滚的量才比很恐怖。OK， 那个像你如果借10万块，可能到你家已经变成40几万、50几万，那是很恐怖，因为它是一天一天的这样累积。OK，based on day. So every time when people are telling you, oh, just the interest is really low, you have to make sure they are daily interest or monthly interest or yearly interest 哈，那个是到底是年利率、月利率还是日利率差很大哈。然后 times fraction of year. Fraction means 10 months out of 12 months or just 1 month of out of 12 months， 就是 fraction 就是它的百分比的那个部分哈。那所以这样乘。So for example, 你的年金是1200块，你 annual principal is 1,200, then the annual interest 2%, and you borrow it for 1 month, so the fraction is 1 out of 12. So actually, that means 这个东西的话，那你的 monthly 为什么下不来 ？monthly 的 interest 就是monthly interest 就是2块钱 ，OK。好，那我们来看这个题目。Fast forward, borrowed 6,000 from First National Bank on December 1st. 12月1号借了一笔6000块钱。The note， 注意这个字哈，就是你总共有多少的承担多少利息，用 bears。好，这个是个 verb bears，OK。The note bears interest at the annual rate of 6%. 好，它所承担的年利率 annual rate is 6%, and is due 就是 another word, due 就到期哈。那有的时候那个 maternity due 就是妇人那个女孩子要生产的 due date， 就是生产的日子叫 due date。我要生什么时候生呢 ？Oh my due date is on 是这么的。那这里的 due 就是your homework is due 啊，什么时候到期了 ？Due to be repaid in 1 year. Let's accrue interest for the month ended of 12 December 31. OK， 所以1年后这个东西是1年的借款，但是呢，借款通常 normally when you borrow money, you pay the interest at the end of the due date. 我们通常是到期是 pay with principal and also the total interest. 通常借钱是 the last day, the due date to pay the total amount. Okay, you don't have to pay the interest month by month. That's the business behavior. 这通常商业行为都是在最后的时候才去。那所以你的 repaid is on the next year December 30th. But problem is for the first month December you have already borrowed the money. So the fact is you have incurred interest expense. OK， 你借了12月1号借钱，借1年的话，你是明年11月30才要还嘛。但是呢，因为你12月已经发生了1个月借款的事实，所以你这个1个月的，即便你还没有付利息，要到明年11月30才一整笔付的话，那你12月的利息还是要就是调整出来，因为已经发生。OK，so a year later you have to pay the total principal 6,000 and the total interest for 12 months $360. So total amount is here. But for the first month, since the monthly interest is $30. How do you know the $30 being calculated? 6,000 times 6% times the total year, the day. You will ask, well, the total day of a year is 365. How come we using 360? Any mistakes? Actually, no. For calculation, easily make the even number. We normally use 360 days instead of 365. OK， 所以这是 acceptable 可以接受的。所以 1 month 30, actually you can do that 1 out of 12, same thing. OK, for 1 month, each month interest expense 30. OK, so December 31, your adjusting entry, you incur the interest expense again, and you have accrued interest, which we use interest payable. Okay, so this is the for this one. Okay, and I'm asking, how many times you are going to do the adjusting entries? How many times you are going to do the adjusting entries? And when is the time you are going to do that? 我要问你们问题，请问这个调整分录在明年到期时总要做几次？然后是什么时候做 ？How many times? How many times you have, before the due date? How many times you need to do the adjusting entry for interest? 要做几次？2次啊？为什么 ？Why？ 笨猜的。那表示你刚刚还没听懂。你们这一群总共要做几次这个调整利息？要做几次在明年到期前？
在明年到期前要做几次？
12, right? Because if they are making a monthly statement, 如果是做月报表 if the condition is, if we are going to make monthly financial statement, then which means the end of each month, you have to do this repeat and repeat for 12 times. But if I'm asking, I change the premise, 前提是 if I'm making only for annual financial statement, and how many times you're going to do before the due date. 注意的问题哦。One, very good. No, because the due date is on November 30. Okay, so when you are doing the annual, semi-annual report, so the first time you need to do is on June 30. Very good. 6月30号，你是不是 have to do the adjusting entry the first time? But go to the last November 30. You have already paid off the money. So when you go to the next annual report, December 31, there's no issue for this anymore. So just one.
Yeah, I say one.
Yeah, one. Okay, I saw two. So if I'm asking quarterly, then you have to do March, June, September 3 times. Okay, so the context is very clear. Good. Okay, so this is what we call the accrued entry expense. If since you have the expense, of course you have the accrued revenues, receivable, revenue, receivable. Okay, so here is the example. December 12th, fast forward agreed to render 这个字就提供啊 render consulting services under a 30-day fixed fee. Again, fixed. Okay, then will not change. Every time the same money. Contract for $2,700, which means you divide it by 30. One day, you know the consulting service will make you earn $90. Okay, all the surveys are to be completed by January 10th, when the client will pay in full the money. So here, this fixed, when they mention the fixed date, which means starting from December 13, every day you need to provide or render the consulting service day by day. Okay, so starting from December 13 to the end of December 31, there are how many days? 19 days or 18 days? Okay, 18 days. Okay, for the starting 30, yes, for the service you have provided, but actually yet you have not received money. Okay, so each day is 30 or only 20 days? Oh, my math. Okay. So record 20 days accrued times 90. How come it's 20? Maybe the date is wrong. 30? Yes, it's 31 minus 12 add up 1 is 20. Okay, 20 days. So you have accounts receivable, okay, for 1,800. Then you have consulting revenue. Actually, you have completed your obligation. Okay, so here is the one. Can someone tell me the original entry for December 12th when you received $2,700? What's the entry for that day? What's the answer for that day? Pingyu. So on December 12th, what's the entry for the day? 直接告诉我用口头看。That be what? That be what? You receive $2,700. They pay you in advance for the following 30-day service, consulting service. So on December 12th, what's your entry for that day? Oh no. Oh, good。来，你们这边，如果在12月12号你收了2700块，那一天的分录要写什么？
拿到2700。
干嘛？要打？你要打什么？有没有人知道？279。什么东西？连现在他也不这样写。这里面哪有这279这个数字啊？他随便讲的随便听哦，这就很好骗。
我怕直接讲。
So you debit cash 2,700, you credit 注意啦 unearned revenue。unearned 预收入2700，注意啦，我一直在告诉你的原始分录，我们虽然在讲调整分录，请你要常常脑袋想想你原来该怎么做，这才叫复习。OK， 所以自己在课本上找到它96页，你必须在12月12号那天注解你是 debit cash, credit and earned revenue. So since we have provided 20-day service, so that's why the one you are seeing now is for the adjustment. Okay, so you have a account AR and you have increased incurred the consulting revenue for this amount. Okay. So here is the thing. Oopsie. Just assume this company starting from December 5th already have created several, the consulting service. But besides, for this case, okay, it has to add up another $1,800, which will totally to $7,800, and this revenue will put on here. Income statement, the consulting revenue, the total amount 7,850. So now you know the relationship. After the end of your adjustment, you have the updated balance for each account. Then you should put the account to its right spot for the financial statement. Okay? So then after you have a fully financial statement, then that's the final product you can provide to whoever needs to see the financial information. Okay. All right. So again, just like the similar one, the future payment or the future receipt of the money is more important than just the adjustment. Okay. So let's see here. For 30 days, you have the accounts receivable. But moving to January, there are 10 days left. 10 days left. Here it should be very important because cash on the last day, you receive the full money, which is 2,700. Okay, received. And for the 10-day service, 90 times day for the January consulting revenue, it's only $900. But you have to also fulfill that they have to also pay the money which are already recognized on December. So here again, you write off AR from debit to credit. And actually the money is included at, actually we can do this two ways. Another way, then make you more clear. On January 10th, first thing, you receive the money related to your account receivable, $1,800. Okay, because you have receivable, they should pay you for the last period. And the second one, for the current January 9 days, there are $900 and for cash. Since these two entries are happening on the same day, same transaction, so they have overlap account here, so you can add it up. Okay, that's why it becomes the one showing on your book. Okay, if you feel very confusing for the one for the January 10th, you can split that one to this. Make your idea more clear. Okay, concept very clear. Okay, actually that one include two entries. Okay, 你们这样看有没有比较懂？因为你可以把那一天的东西把它分成2个分录，一个是关于上个月的 应收账款，那先收到上个月钱，那再过来这个月的钱，总共9天，10天的话是900块。但是因为这2个分录呢发生在同一天，而且是跟同一个交易相关的，然后又有重叠的会计科目，所以我们可以把它那个I made it wrong. Sorry, mistake here. No one remind me. Here it should be the consulting revenue. The second one is about the consulting revenue. Okay, the first one is about the account receivable, then you have received the money. So that's why we added up these 2 entries becomes the one showing on the screen. Okay. Alright, so since you have revenue, of course, similar, you have you borrow the last case, you borrow money from someone, then this case you give money, somebody owe you money. Okay, when a debtor means somebody you owe somebody money. When a debtor owe money to a company, the interest to creditor, don't get confused to these 2 terms. Creditor has the right, debtor has the obligation. Okay, then can yield 产生 accrued revenue. Okay, similar things. Okay, then we don't have the example for that one, but somehow we have the quiz again for this chapter. Okay, let's do the quiz 2 from your Trump class. Okay, go to 3-2. The number 1 fiscal year refers to an organization's. We have this already before.
1/3.
Sorry. Okay, the number 1 accrued expenses at the end of accounting. 自己做哈，我现在练给你们听哦，不要再跟别人讨论答案了哈。Accrued expenses at the end of one accounting period are expected to result in cash payment in a future period. 什么叫应计费用？就是在期末的时候预期会产生未来的现金支付，叫做应付费用。Number 2, accrued expenses reflect transactions where cash is paid before a related expense is recognized. 也就是说，什么叫应计费用呢？就是现金在相关的费用还没有被认列的时候先支付，就叫做应付费用。就在相关的东西还没发生的时候就要先支付，叫做应付费用。Number 2. Number 3, before an adjusting entry is made, 在你还没有做调整分录前 ，to accrue employee salary 就产生了员工的薪资 ，salary expense and salary payable are both understated。就是说，你如果还没有做 调整分录的话，那你的薪资费用和应付薪资都会低估，两者都会低估。Number 4, failure to record depreciation expense， 没有去做记录折旧费用的话 ，will understate the asset and understate expense， 会低估资产、低估费用。如果你没有做折旧费用，想想看，折旧费用的分录是什么 ？The adjusting entry for depreciation is debit, depreciation expense, and credit accumulated depreciation. If you didn't do this, adjusting will cause you understate the asset and understate the expense. Okay, the last one. Net income for a period will be overstated. Okay, 本期损益，想看什么叫 What is net income? Revenue minus expense. We call that net income. If what will happen will cause the overstate of net income. If accrued salaries are not recorded at the end of accounting period. 如果你在期末没有记录应计薪资这个部分调整的话，你的本期损益是不是就会高估？啊，本期损益是不是高估 ？OK。蔡一方有来吗？高雨婷是那个比较胖的，还是王庭宇比较胖？
王振
宇是比较胖的。可是王振宇不是常常都去上课吗？
他已经除了会计课以外，他其他课几乎没有见到。
真的吗？我觉得他上课还蛮认真的。
我已经好久没有看到他。
他还说帮他家里将来能够处理一些财务问题。哎，品瑜怎么还没上？传了吗？传了。哎，我看一下。
对啊，他爸是
都可以了哈，但我关掉了。
继承者。
So the first one, accrued expense at end of accounting period are expected to result in cash payment in a future period. 应计费用期末的时候预期会造成未来期间的现金支付，所以答案是 true。OK。The second one, accrued expense， 好，所谓的应计费用呢，反映的交易是说现金在还没有相关费用产生的时候就先付出了，正好相反。就相关的费用 ，for example, salary expense and salary payable, then that's the accrued expense. 所以正好是 should after a related expense is recognized， 所以是 false. And number 3， 这是对的哈，就是你在before you have any adjusting entry, then if you don't do that, your salary expense and salary payable are both understated. There's no question. Number 4, failure to record 的话，那你的 expense OK， 你就没有。这题我再讲一次哈。For example, we have building. then you need to minus the accumulated depreciation. If you don't do this, your asset will overstate it, okay? And also the depreciation expense, if you didn't do that, then yeah, your depreciation expense will also understate it. So that's why it's false, because then you understate the assets. Okay, last one is true. That's okay, fine. Let's go to I think we're almost to the end of the adjusting. So I recommend you all go to the page 101. There's some demonstration problem and also some exercise problem. I think we're doing that on this afternoon all together. So make sure this afternoon you bring your books. Then we can do the exercise one by one. Okay? And okay, finally, I think it's more important for business school students. If you are not really care about accounting, I think it's acceptable, but at least you should know how to read the financial statement, okay? Again, what are the financial statements? It covers four statements, okay? So we need to, before we make a really final updated financial statement, there are still some process you have to do, okay? Which means you have to, need to make a adjusted trial balance. Still remember at the end of chapter 2, okay, we have a trial balance without the word adjusted. Only trial balance, we can say that TB. 这个 TB 不是你们的卡介苗 ，OK， 打卡介苗那个字也叫 TB。OK， 你们小时候有没有打卡介苗 ？If you want to go to United States, they have to check your shots record, which you have to indicate you have received the TB before. Okay, here trial balance 中文叫做试算表。那个时候的试算表 ，what's the difference with the TB on chapter 2 and the one here? Because we add up adjusted TB. Okay, then what is the one on chapter 2 试算表? At the time when you finish all the, like we have the posting to individual letter to individual account. So you always have the final balance for each account. Final balance 就最后的余额. So we can, in order before we do the adjusting, this is the first time you have to prepare the TB. Before you do the adjusting, that's the first time you do the TB. Then you put the sequence from, we can see the example here easier. Then the sequence can be like here. You start from assets, okay, and the digit will start from 2, you then move to liability. Then the third one is the equity, and the fourth number is the revenue, and the fifth number, I don't know, they use the 6 for some reason, is for the expense. So we use the sequence on your accounting book based on your accounting policy. Then you pile up all the items on your spreadsheet. So this is a spreadsheet, a very wide one, and from top to the down. Okay? So based on the sequence, so wherever you have the final balance, before you make the adjustment, you just put a number here. Then this is the first time you have to make sure for your daily transaction, whether they put the right debit, they put the right credit. Then you total the number up to here, you total the all credit number here, you make sure these two total numbers are equal. So that's the first check for the reason why we need to have a TB. If you made something wrong, then you probably, for example, you should put $100, but instead you use $10. If you made a mistake, when you are doing the adjusting the TB, then you find the problem right away, the error, the mistakes. Okay, so this is the first time you made a TB. Okay, then after the adjusting entry we just made, okay, then you have to move all the adjusting entry to here. So the column here, adjustment, you know the adjustment is the column here, okay. Actually, it's related to whatever the account here. Then you have to show on this column. So this is the unadjusted, and this is the adjustment you made. So you add up from this column with this one, go to the adjusted TB number. So adjusted trial balance number is the final, is the updated balance number. Then based on adjusted TB, then you can make the related financial statement here. Okay. So before we go to make the real full statement, you need to get the final adjusted TB and use the number on it, then make the related statement. Okay, that's the steps. So you know the overall concept, then you should know what the TB, the reason we need a TB, adjusted TB. I think we'll stop here. Okay, then we continue this afternoon class for practicing. Okay, then we almost wrap up for chapter 3. Okay, because I have to have a meeting at